Transformation. In the life cycle of a medical career, a medical student becomes a resident. It's 11 a.m. in the NICU. Attending rounds are finished and one of the NICU babies is scheduled for laser surgery. He's to be intubated before the retinal specialist arrives. Taking the initiative, the third-year resident volunteers to do the intubation. We discuss the procedure, the landmarks to look for, how to position the baby's head, and the other steps in the intubation. The baby's a senior in the unit. He's been off oxygen for a while and should tolerate the procedure. We gather the equipment, the team is at the bedside, and it looks like we're ready to proceed. Or are we? With the laryngoscope in hand, the resident begins to open the baby's mouth. I notice that her hands are shaking. I don't want to draw attention to it, so I move in closer, hoping that she feels my presence and calms down. But I'm too late. The nurse has seen her hands shaking as well and brings it to the attention of the team, saying, "Doctor, your hands are shaking." Quietly, I offer her words of encouragement. "I'm here to support you," I remind her. He's on the monitor. The nurse and respiratory therapist are watching his vital signs. He's not that fragile 25-weeker anymore. He's been in room air. "You can do this," I say. This seems to help and her shaking subsides. She proceeds to the intubation. On her first attempt, she's unsuccessful. After the second unsuccessful attempt, I intubate the baby. We secure the airway and return him to his isolette. And then we have a conversation, a different one. It's not the one about how to perfect her intubation skills. The conversation is deeper and more meaningful, and it has the ability to impact the way she sees herself as a future neonatologist. Her question is, how do you remain calm and confident when a baby's airway, a baby's life depends on you? I take a deep breath. In fact, I take a few more. What do I share with a doctor early in her career that will encourage her and inspire her and not increase or reinforce her fears? How much of my story do I share? Do I tell her that as doctors, we live in a place of vulnerability that we mask when we put on our scrubs and our stethoscope and our white coats? Do I tell her that when I go to the delivery room, I still pray for the best outcomes and that I've learned to shield my energy so I don't get distracted by the increased level of people or angst or anxiety when a stat is called? Because I know if I do get distracted, it will derail my focus, my attention, and my effectiveness. And I know this because it's happened. Or do I let her believe, as other doctors may have, that once you complete residency and fellowship training, confidence is just a natural byproduct? I tell her my story not to reinforce her fears, but to make her aware that in her shaking hands, she is not alone, even after 20 years of experience. And I share my story so that she knows, although there is no outward appearance of angst or anxiety or fear, I still appreciate the challenges of living on the cusp of life and death. It's in accepting our vulnerability that we recognize our strength, and it's in sharing my story that I choose life for her. And in the life cycle of medicine, a resident emerges as an attending physician. I sat across the table from my physician client and listened to her story. And she asks, how could it be after 4 years of medical school and 3 years of training in my chosen field that I feel disillusioned and disconnected? Instead of seeing the excitement of starting a new chapter in her career, or acknowledging some trepidation about becoming an attendant, there's a quiet sadness that surrounds her. And it wasn't the sadness of moving on and leaving her peers behind. It was the sadness of the brokenness that residency training had left in its wake. She certainly wasn't that image that you might see on a website page of a smiling doctor. And she's not alone. Whether you call it physician burnout or frustration or overwhelm or stress, or as I call it, the brokenness, the sadness from brokenness, it is a dis-ease that doesn't discriminate based on gender or race or specialty or level of training or years in practice. I've met some amazing physicians who just needed time off to disconnect and recover. And I've met some talented clinicians who'd lost fulfillment in their lives. Some doctors appear to thrive in the present climate of medicine. It propels them to excel, while others just wade through the water trying to get to the other side. And as we know, others break. Sitting across from my client, it stirred deep feelings within me. It brought back my memories. How could it be that almost 2 decades later, the struggle in medicine still exists? It persists. How is it that a profession that dedicates itself to research has embraced technology to the point that we have robotic surgery has neglected its people? There's a disconnection that we can no longer ignore. Success in medicine does not automatically equate to a successful life. Somehow, somewhere in the process of studying, honing our skills, and learning to deliver best outcomes for patients, we sacrificed ourselves. We have to acknowledge this problem and the role that we play in it. We have to be willing to shift to a new model, a new paradigm where we educate, train, and support one another in a collegial spirit and not as competitors. We have to learn to nurture and not demean. And so we shifted through the sadness of her brokenness, first to acknowledge the pain and damage of the past 3 years, for transformation to take place, for her to emerge as the doctor that she's meant to be, requires her healing the experience so that the lessons are allowed to surface. The lessons revealed her resiliency. It revealed her commitment to completing the program when every indication was that she was going to quit. And it revealed the courage that she had to ask for help in a profession where we suffer in isolation. Could these lessons mold and shape her into a doctor who emerges compassionate with understanding and perseverance towards her own patients when they need it most? And aren't these the qualities that we want to see in our physicians? So as I think about medicine, I ask myself, might this be the next leading edge of medicine? Can the current structure in medicine make room for the personal development that doctors need to experience success in all areas of their lives and not just on the professional front? My clients tell me yes. The doctors who are courageous enough to reach out for help, they affirm that this is the direction for medicine to move in order for physicians to thrive, and not solely physicians. It's evidenced by the nurse practitioner whose career has expanded beyond the bedside to include publishing in journals and speaking at conferences and contributing to core curriculum to train emerging practitioners. And she attributes her achievements and her success personally and professionally to the strategies we mapped out when her career was in its infancy decades ago. And it's evidenced by the resident who does her inner work to release the feelings of not good enough, that imposter syndrome, and allow herself to step boldly into her fullest potential and make the contributions she's meant to make in medicine. And it's evidenced by the early career physician who incorporates daily practices into her life now to combat the stress and the overwhelm of the added responsibilities as a new attendant. And it's evidenced by me. As I reflect over 2 decades of practicing neonatal medicine, I understand that my journey is taking a turn and a new direction to serve the people of medicine. Medicine needs its doctors and nurse practitioners and teams to release the struggle and embrace the wholeness in life so that they can fully demonstrate best practices in the care of their patients and best practices in the care of ourselves. So in conclusion, it's through the mounting anxiety as we wait for a new life to begin, and through the look of disappointment as parents watch as their babies are wheeled away from the delivery room into the NICU. And it's through the resuscitations and intubations and difficult IVs, all intended to help sustain life. And through the pages and cell phones that signal emergencies. It's through the babies who go home with their families and those who move on to transitional care, and those with anticipated good outcomes, and those whose prognosis we're not sure of. And it's through the babies who go home and say goodbye way too soon. We learn our lessons. The lesson of living on the cusp of life and death is to make room for life to flow, to let life take the lead, because when we do, we create space for the entire experience, for the peaks and the valleys, for the ebbs and the flows. We shift from solely focusing on the struggle in medicine and avail ourselves to the solutions and the support that we need to move through it all. Maybe this is the leading edge of medicine. Thank you.